I'm so excited to have you with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. This episode is about emphasis. A lot of times we emphasize the wrong things. We don't mean to. There are things that are big priorities, things we really care about, and we don't do a good job of emphasizing those things. So today we are going to talk about how to do that, what that looks like. I'm actually going to give you some visuals that might be able to help you understand some of what I'm telling you. This is episode number 228. So let me show you some things. This is a hand-drawn letter with pencil. It shows up just fine. Some of that has to do with the texture of the paper on which it is drawn. I did this using a number 2 pencil rather than a mechanical, and it looks pretty detailed, I'm sure, from where you sit. Now I'm going to show you this up against a finished letter, and then I'm going to work on this letter as I'm doing this episode, and I'm hoping you will see the difference between something that is just done with a minimal amount of effort, which is kind of a joke because it takes quite a bit of effort to fill the space well, and something which takes more effort and hence has greater emphasis. Now that you see the two together, the K in the pencil and the A covered over with acid-free archival quality black ink, you can see there's quite a bit of difference. And so the emphasis becomes stronger when the pencil is covered over with ink. Here's the kind of ink I'm using. There are lots of kinds of them, but I tend to really love microns, and there's a whole set of them. You can get them at Michael's, you can get them at Hobby Lobby, you can even get them at Joann Fabrics. So I'm not trying to encourage you about any particular kind or any particular place. I'm just letting you know because the next thing that's going to happen is these are going to get painted over in watercolor. And so it has to be an ink that cannot run. And I like archival quality ink because then it doesn't injure or disrupt the paper. All right, so while we're talking, I'm going to do this. Now let me tell you, you as a parent, you get to emphasize a lot of things. One of the ways that you can emphasize things is with your words. When my son was 12 years old, I don't remember what occurred, but I actually said a 4-letter word that began with S, and he went, "Mama, I didn't even think you knew that word." That was quite a strong source of emphasis for my son, and he understood me very well. That was a dead serious thing when I used that word in my vocabulary, which he had never heard out of my mouth before. In other words, make judicious use of your power. If you're constantly cussing and someday something really big comes up and you cuss again, your kids are going to be like, yeah, it's just the way my dad talks, just what my mom does. It won't have any kind of emphasis whatsoever because they've already been hearing that language their whole life. If you want something to have emphasis, you cannot overuse it. Another thing you can do in relationship to emphasis with your words is volume. If in your house people are yelling all the time, which is kind of how it was where I grew up, no one even knew what a normal tone of voice was. When something really big happens and you yell, and I mean, your kids have already heard that their whole life. You've lost your point of emphasis. So you don't need to be yelling all the time. You need to speak in a very normal tone of voice, pretty well modulated. And then, in the event that something big is going on and you need to raise your voice, wow, your kids are going to catch that. It's going to have a much greater emphasis because you don't talk like that or at that decibel level every single day of their lives. Here's another one, and it's an underutilized one in parenting. You have to learn how to whisper. Because if you are really ticked off and you want to scream, and you stop and you stare that kid right in the eyes, and you say, "That is enough of that." I'm telling you right now, I learned this as a teacher. that really grabs a kid. They respond so much differently to a whisper than to a yelled tone of voice. So, one of your greatest tools as a parent is learn how to whisper. I hate Elf, just so you know. But I've been with my grandsons for a week when it's one of my grandson's favorite movies, and he says, I like to whisper too. Just so you know, it is true that whispering is very powerful. All right, so one area of emphasis is with your words. Another area of emphasis that you should use is repetition. So you really want your kids to know something or believe something or understand something in general once is insufficient. So, of course, as teachers, we constantly say repetition, fill it in, aids learning. You go through those alphabet letters when you're teaching a kindergartner the alphabet. You sing that song as a parent till you're about ready to lose your mind, but your child learns the alphabet. You do that with multiplication tables. You do that with so many skills. Well, as a parent, when there is something you really want your child to know and understand, it is your responsibility to emphasize it sufficiently by repetition. So that might mean as they're getting ready to go to bed and you're tucking them in, you remind them. We talked about whatever it is. I'm not going to fill in the blank for you. And so I want you to think about this tonight while you're going to sleep because it's very important. And I want you to know that it's very important. These are some of the ways you can think about this. You emphasize it through repetition. The next day in the morning, you discuss it with them. The next day, when they get home from school, you discuss it with them. In the space of a week's time, you discuss it with them between 10 and 20 times. You've repeated it sufficiently and addressed it from a few angles, and your child grasps that this is something that is really important to you. Repetition adds emphasis. Now, let me show you the difference between pencil and once you've gone over it. So you can see really clearly the emphasis of the Pigma, the pen, over top of the pencil. And emphasis makes a difference. Keep in mind that I could merely do some portions of it in ink, leave the other portions of it in pencil, or these pens come in various diameters, all the way from a 001 up to a 10. So you can use the really, really thin one and have less of an emphasis on some parts than others, which will bring the part that is emphasized out more strongly visually. So, what I want you to know is you are in charge of this whole sense of emphasis with your children. The third element of emphasis is strength, the strength of your words and tone. Most of us, when we get stronger, if you're not spitting all over the place because you're ticked off and mad and flying off the handle, but if you're doing this in a well controlled environment, you will articulate more clearly and you will add emphasis to some words. Consequently, the strength of your words also adds emphasis. There's another thing that matters, and that is eye contact. Your kid's doing this, and you're doing this. There isn't a lot of strength there. There is a strength in personal connection where you look your child right in the eyes, and he or she looks you right in the eyes, and that strength of connection also adds emphasis. I'm going to give you one illustration because I think that it's a simple one that every parent deals with, and that is, did you do your homework today? So it doesn't have a moral implication or you can't disagree with me. It is everybody in the world at some point has homework, and often as a parent, it is part of our responsibility to get our child to do their homework. That's why we're going to use this one. So you say to them in a normal tone, did you finish your homework today? Well, no, I had this and I had to do this and I'll do it tonight before I go to bed. Okay, so here is word. No, you're going to do that homework right now because I know how it is. Tonight before you go to bed, you're going to have another million excuses. It's going to be 11:30 and you're supposed to be in bed by 9. So no, you're doing it Now. See that emphasis? Oh, yeah, I know, Mom, but I like this and this. How many times have every one of us ever heard this? Okay, repetition. I stated to you already, you are going to do it now. Yes, you are. Sit down at this table, pull it out. You are doing it. You might need to do this 4 or 5 more times in the next 10 minutes, but keep on repeating it. And then we're going to deal with strength. Okay, you say to them, I said, do it now. Okay, or you can even go, I said, do it now. Depending on if you're a yeller or what, those words might knock them down. You might take hold of them by the arm and stop them. Look at me. I told you you are doing this now. Nothing else has priority. Hand me your phone. You're not going to talk to your friends. No, you can't go outside and play baseball. No, you cannot go over to your girlfriend's and hang out for an hour. No, you're going to do your homework now. Right in the face, eye to eye. All of us choose whether or not we use this tool well. As parents, woo, it's a big deal to learn the importance of emphasis. What is a priority to you? What is probably the most important thing that you want your child to learn or do? You need to be placing emphasis on that, and you need to do it over and over again. In my kids' lives, there are a few things that matter to me so very much that I probably emphasized it to them 1,000 times throughout their growing up years, literally. And you know what was great about that was they caught it. They understood what I was doing and why I was doing that. You need to start to develop your own sense of what is the most important stuff, 3 to 5 things that you need your child to know and understand before they get to be an adult. And you need to make emphasis on those things. That is one of your places and responsibilities as a parent. My question for you today is this. What matters to me the most that I need to emphasize it to my child? Maybe you don't even know that, and you need to find that out. If you do know what that is, if that's pretty easy and you write it down, then ask yourself, am I doing a good job at emphasizing these things in my child's life so that when they grow up, they understand these things really, really mattered to my parents? I hope this has been a lot of help for you today. I hope that you are emphasizing the right things in your own life and in the lives of your children. And I will look forward to seeing you again very soon on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.